Hey everyone, welcome back to Berlin Noir, and today we are going to be filling in a lot of just empty space that's just been kind of a giant hole in the heart of the city, really. If you watched the last episode when I did an overview of what we built so far, then you would have seen in the very zoomed out shots, like in the very beginning of the episode, just south of the Tiergarten, and I guess that would and basically between the Tiergarten and the train stations that I've built, there's just a lot of just land that has yet to be filled in, and that is basically what I'm going to be doing today. I am going to be filling in every little square inch of that pretty large piece of land there. So if you didn't watch last week's episode, I guess I'll put a little card in the top right there so you can go see what I'm talking about, because hard to exactly describe or visualize that. But yeah, so I guess let us get into the build. So since I am just filling in, like I said, a very large piece of land, there's not too much to say, really. I mean, pretty much just a lot of these blocks, big ones, small ones, triangular ones, oddly shaped ones. I tried to make the blocks look a little more interesting in this piece of the map. So I mean, in real life, at least back when the series is taking place in 1929, this area in the Tiergarten, there was just humongous blocks. Like if looking at the aerial view I have of the area, for the most part, there's just, I don't know how else to say, just ginormous blocks. And trying to zoom in, I see, it's kind of hard to tell, but tons of trees, smaller buildings, in the rear of, more, I guess, in the center. So, for instance, this block here that I'm doing, this one's definitely the biggest one that I build today. And I try my best to expand the buildings, I guess, towards the center of the actual block itself. But yeah, so I mean, all these buildings that I'm using here are just standard growables, so they are of course limited to the being 4x4 units. So like with these buildings here, these are the ones I just placed there, which I go back to in a second to mess around with. But those buildings look a lot like really a lot of the buildings that were around back then. I mean, at least the general shape, and they're very blocky with a little courtyard in the center, which matches a lot of the type of buildings that were around back then that I could see in images and maps. But so what I did there was just extend it backwards, trying to replicate some building, no idea what it is, but part of it actually does exist today. You can see it on the map, but trying to replicate this large building with really just blocky, more or less rectangular buildings like that with courtyards in the center, which it looks decent. I've done that actually a few other places in the city as well, not as nearly as large as that. Pretty much like what I did right there in the left side of the screen, where just two of them, one on the street and one facing the opposite direction. I've done that a few times throughout the city because just trying to fill in larger blocks so there's not a lot of just green in the center of these blocks. But so just trying to add a, I don't know, kind of courtyard looking thing with some paths, that one leading to more or less nowhere. But I mean, this is all very loosely based on just the aerial views that I have of this area. And when it comes to the actual road layouts, there's really not much that's pretty accurate to how it was back then. Which, I mean, honestly, doesn't matter too much, I don't think, because this is, I mean, as far as there's no landmarks or any sort of monuments here that people recognize, so I don't think it's that important to replicate the road layout perfectly. I mean, yeah, so the only spot that I did try and make a little more close to how it was back then was later in the episode, kind of just a little central plaza, more or less. I'm not sure the actual name of it, because today it's kind of been, I mean, it is actually still there, which I guess I'll talk about it when we get there, but yeah, I mean, if you look at a map of just this area, on Google Maps or whatever, Google Earth, and compare it to how it was back then, this area is also probably, one of the top areas in Berlin that has changed the most, because you have a lot of museums and just like art centers and music halls. Looks like a very nice part of town for, I guess, yeah, tons of museums. Looks like some library and, yeah, music halls, whatnot. But also a ton of embassies. Looking at Google Maps myself right now, I see, one for the Italian embassy, one for Slovakia, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, and like they're all over the place here. So I'm not sure if that's how it was back then, because I honestly didn't realize that until pretty recently, after I've already recorded the footage and did the cinematics. So if that is the case, and there were a ton of embassies back then in this location, which I imagine there were probably embassies here. I don't really see reasons for, who knows? A lot of things have changed in the city, obviously. So, yeah, I guess if you have any knowledge on that, be sure to let me know, because embassies are cool. When I built the French embassy a while ago, I love just placing the flags down, and it looks really good, I think, because, I don't think I've ever really seen people build embassies in a city. And considering this is a capital, and there's going to be, of course, embassies in the capital city of any country, then that's something certainly that's going to add some necessary realism to a city. So yeah, let me know if you do in fact, if you think or know that there were a ton of embassies in that area back then. So I will go back and either off camera or perhaps on camera as well, because it probably won't take too long just to add some flags. But yeah, let me know and I can do that in a future episode. But so anyways, just more continuing of these blocks, trying to change up what's in the center area of these blocks, placing some shacks and I guess outhouses, which one of you did point out to place some more like buildings or especially like outhouses, which I have done, just not nearly as much as I am doing now. For the most part, I just place some trees since it's easy. And for the most part, detailing these back lots is probably just a waste of props and, a waste of, my FPS and I'm getting the city. Because for the most part, the smaller blocks at least, you're not going to be really able to see in very often, even in cinematics. But considering the fact that these blocks that I am building here, not here like this exact one, but in general, this area and for this episode, the blocks that I'm building for this episode are significantly larger than really any of them that I built on camera as of yet. So I definitely tried to detail the center lots and I guess courtyards, plazas, gardens, whatever you want to call it. I tried to detail them up much more. So let me know what you think of that. I could always try and do that a little more on just standard blocks, but like I said, it's not necessarily just a waste of time, because, I obviously want to make it look as good as possible, but I'm mostly just concerned with running into issues with my FPS. And, believe it or not, I have a gaming PC. I didn't build it myself. I bought it pre-assembled from Dell. Never going to do it again in my life. Don't recommend it. But anyways, I got 32 gigs of RAM, but somehow I'm using like 31 gigs of RAM in this city as of now. So, in order to build out this city as we've done a lot so far, yes, but obviously, if you watched the last episode, there's still a ton of things to build. And, to get out into the more rural areas and some farmland, when it comes to, farmlands in Europe, those are incredible to look at. I remember the one time I've been to Europe at the end of high school, I flew into Rome, went through Central Europe and up to Munich, and we flew out of Munich airport at Munich. And I remember just looking out my window and seeing all the farmlands just stretching for miles and miles, and they're much more cooler to look at than American farmlands. For the most part, American farmlands are just either circular or just rectangular, square. I live in Arizona, and even though yes it is a desert, we still have a ton of farmland ourselves, but a lot of them are just little circular plots of land which the little irrigation system just kind of rotates around the circle, so everything gets evenly watered and I guess easier to maintain. I'm not really sure, but compared to European farmlands, which are interestingly shaped and each one is unique looking at it from above. But so I definitely want to, eventually, it's going to be a while for sure, but eventually I want to be able to get out into the rural lands and build some farmland. So I hope my computer can handle it. I'm sure I'll have to go into my subscriptions and, really focus my subscriptions on assets and even mods to what I absolutely 100% need. Because I always tell people that, go through your mods and assets and make sure you are only subscribed to things that you 100% absolutely need. And it's certainly easier to say than to do. I try my best to occasionally go through my assets and mods and uninstall things that either are no longer necessary or maybe a mod already, does that itself and something else. But whatever it may be, I try to do that. But of course, in the meantime, I'm always subscribing to new things. So it's certainly an uphill battle where, frankly, I unsubscribe to stuff and subscribe to a bunch of new things. So in the end, I pretty much just remain where I'm already at. I have close to 3,000 assets in the city, which has definitely gone up. I remember when I first started this series, one thing I wanted to do was keep it to 2,000-ish, maybe 2,500 at the most, because eventually, I would like to get a Patreon account since I am not really approaching, but getting close to 1,000 subs. Hopefully, by the time this video is out, I have 900. Either it'll be just below 900 or at 900 by the time this video is out. As I'm looking now, I have 896. So thank you to every one of you. But we're almost there to 1,000 subs. So once we get there, I would like to release a Patreon account. So you guys, if you want to show your support, you'll get access to save games and all that lovely stuff and much more. But that'll come when we get there. But anyways, I kind of got off topic because I originally was talking about detailing and, limiting my detailing to, more important areas. So anyways, yes. So back to that, I guess, just to finish that off. But, it's unrealistic for several reasons, as I already said, to heavily or just to even detail, every back lot that I have. In these residential areas. But, aside from just trees in most of them, I've maybe just some, dirt, some piles of trash or outhouses. But, I can't do too much more just for the sake of the city and my computer not exploding. But, anyways, so we're getting closer to, you're kind of seeing there. Although right now I'm just putting some decals down to get rid of the monotonous pavement texture. Although that does remind me, I changed the asphalt texture, which, as you can see there, I was laying down asphalt, asphalt ploppable asphalt. Jeez, words today. But anyways, I I changed the asphalt texture. It's still cobblestone, but Tell me what you think. It's much larger, so it's easier to notice the cobblestone. Because when with the other texture I had with the stone texture, it just kind of looked like more or less standard asphalt from a distance. I mean, of course, when you're zoomed in, you can see the texture and see all the little stones and such and bricks, but from a distance, it was hard to tell that it wasn't just standard asphalt, which I don't obviously want in a city that's set in the early 1900s. But this texture, much more noticeable when it comes to the stone brick texture. It's a little darker too, which I actually kind of like. But I don't know, it's kind of funny because I remember testing this texture out like not that long ago too, and I was like, yeah, I don't like this at all, and don't remember why I thought that. Maybe it's because I had a different LUT or different lighting settings on for that, because I frequently like to screw around with the lighting settings and LUT. I'm always tinkering, which fortunately, there was one episode when I really screwed with the LUT and it looked really weird for a portion of the episode, but for the most part, I'm guessing you guys don't really notice, which I guess is the goal. Small changes really, so you're probably never going to actually notice anything drastic with the exception of whatever we mentioned that one episode. But so anyways, let me know what you think of that new asphalt texture. If you like it, I certainly like it now, so I definitely plan on keeping it. But anyways, here we are to pretty much the only recognizable location in this area. So, I mean, looking at a map from back then, you can see this little plaza type thing. But so this area is still there today. However, as I kind of mentioned earlier, but didn't really talk about it because I said I was going to talk about it later, it's kind of just thrown in, hidden, doesn't stand out whatsoever. So there's just a little green patch, which I'm building right there. And then also looking, originally when I was looking at this, there was something, I originally just thought it was another patch of grass right here, the area that I'm building here. But then I realized it was some sort of building, and I had no idea what type of building it was. So I ended up just finding this tiny little, I don't even know what it is, honestly. And for whatever reason, it was missing a little, portion of the roof there. But I couldn't tell what that building was until like 20 minutes ago when I was preparing to start the commentary for the video, and I went on Google Maps and I finally saw it, and it's just a tiny little church, which is actually still there. So I guess that could be it doesn't look like a church whatsoever, really. So I mean, frankly, I don't think any building or any churches that I have would actually fit in there, because pretty much all the churches on the workshop that fit this era are large, grand, beautiful churches that are very large themselves, so none of that's going to fit here. So whatever this building is, could be some sort of administrative thing or perhaps a museum, something like that. I don't know what it would function as back then, but it seems fine there. It works, and most importantly, it is the correct size. So that's going to stay there, and I think it looks all right. But that was really it for that small area. It wasn't much to it, but that is pretty much the only, as I said, recognizable location if you were to look at a map back then, because that area does stand out. But anyways, so for the remaining of the episode, we just have more of these blocks to finish. I believe the remaining ones are these triangular ones, which I actually laid out the road network for this area quite a long time ago, actually. I adjusted it slightly when I was making this video, because I still had some blocky, just standard looking blocks, which I changed up slightly. So there were some longer ones, some fatter ones, some, just one of the variation as, blocks were back then, as well as today. But I do like the triangular blocks, because they are pretty easy to build, and they're not just standard, grid, even though I guess it's within a grid slightly, but it's not just square or rectangular blocks, which get repetitive, of course. But as you see, here's another one coming up, another triangular block. But anyways, I like these especially because I just love the 45-degree cornered buildings. Like all those, I only have a few variations. I have that very large one there, and I have that other one there that I just placed. That, so I think I only have like 4 variations. So, and including that tiny little one there, which is actually French themed. I use it because it's so small, it doesn't really stand out necessarily as a French building. I mean, if you look at it closely, it definitely does look French, but considering it's so small, just on the very corner, I think it works out fine. Just to add some more variation, because as I said, that only makes 4 corners for 45-degree angles. But anyways, yeah, as I was saying, I really do like the 45-degree corners because they allow you to place, fountains out front, which I only did once right there. But also, of course, just a lot of advertisement columns and some kiosks, which I place pretty much all over the place as well. But, it's especially easy on the 45-degree corners because there's a lot more room versus, just standard 90-degree corners, which, depending on the building I use out front, there's often not a lot of room there, so I can't really place anything. But anyways, just more detailing of back lots. Nothing much to that one, I don't believe. I did download these, I guess they're parks, but just for like restaurants and such. Like the one on the right there was, I think it was a Red Bull thing. So I just didn't subscribe to the Red Bull umbrellas and like a little Red Bull fence, which of course that would not have looked right in this city. So without the fence and without the umbrellas, it looks fine, I guess, just for easy, quick detailing of backyard or back lots, plazas, and some also want to use it in the front of some buildings eventually, depending on the area. But so we're getting somewhat close to the end of the episode. It's definitely a little longer, especially since last week's video was, I think it was 13 minutes or something like that, just over 13 minutes. Very short, but that was just because it was one long cinematic video, so that took forever, and it was a serious pain to record that, since I have to record the cinematic shots at very slow speed, so it's just like drags on, drives me nuts. But anyways, so for next week episode, let me know what you guys want to think. I actually put up a poll on my Instagram account for what this episode was going to be. I asked if you wanted to see, me filling in the empty areas, or if you wanted to see me building the Technical University in Berlin. And the Technical University had a slight lead by only a few percentage points, and actually accidentally voted myself twice for the Technical University. So taking that into account, it must have been pretty much dead even. So I figured I might as well fill in the empty space, since I figured it's fairly boring as of an episode to build stuff like this, but a few of you said you actually enjoy it. And one of you said you find this type of video relaxing. So I obviously took that into consideration, and since a number of you actually like these types of episodes, I figured I'd do it. So I'll probably follow up this episode with the Technical University as well as something else. I'm not really sure, because just building the university itself, the asset's already there, just some small detailing around it, so that probably won't take very long. But we'll see. I guess that the rest of the episode will be a surprise for you guys. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, just filling in a lot of space. Got slightly longer the cinematics, so you get to see a good portion of the city with the Tiergarten, which looks great. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.